Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Lung Pamay, and as promised, today I'll demonstrate how to build a professional add-in for Excel. The features that you create in this kind of solutions are available to application itself, regardless of the workbooks open. So once you build and install the add-in, the features that you include will be available for any workbook. I've already published tutorials on how to create VSTO add-ins, XLL plugins using Excel DNA and a web Excel add-in as well. So in case you missed them, be sure to check the video description for the links. While creating add-in, like any other VBA projects, you can include functions and procedures, ribbon customization, context menu, hotkeys for the shortcuts, and so on. The main difference is that these functionalities will be available to any workbook, and the sheets in the project workbook remains invisible. In the future videos, I'll also demonstrate how to create add-in for Access, PowerPoint, Word document, and also for Outlook. Okay, so before we begin, if you haven't, please do not forget to subscribe for latest updates and also to support my channel. Let me add a new workbook. Let's start off by creating an add-in with basic functionality, and then once you're familiar with this, we'll like add more custom and advanced functions. Okay. Um, so, like I've said earlier, if like once you save the workbook as an add-in, which is XLA for 2003 versions and .XLAM, .XLA for 2003 versions, and then post that will be XLAM. Okay, these are the file extensions. Once you save your file as these extensions, you will not be able to view your sheets. Okay, so if you plan to use your sheets to add a data, maybe so that you can save some user preferences or for any XYZ reasons, if you're going to use the sheets, then you can start off by developing in like XLSM or XLSB maybe, and then once you're done, you can publish as XLA or XLAM. Okay, so now let me go to my editor. uh, First, let's name this as XL utilities. Okay, and if you want, you can put a password as well. For now, I won't do that. Okay, put a unique name so that once you install the add-in, you'll be able to identify that easily. Okay, inserting a new module. Now let's add a function, basic function, just to add numbers. Okay, and I'll include two parameters, number one as double, and then number two as also as double, and it's going to return us double. Okay, now let's say that we want to return n1 plus n2. Okay, now copy this. If I put in here, it just recognizes that, right? Now a1 and b1. Okay, let's say I want to add these two numbers. So once I put a number here, it's around 10, right? Sum of this. Now if I copy this and add a new workbook, okay, so this book 8 and book 9, if I add here, it's not going to understand because this this particular function is specific to this particular project, right? Excel utilities. Okay, but as soon as you save this as like the add-in, then this will become available to any workbook. So let's try that. Let's save as, I'm gonna go save it here. Okay, first I'll save it as XLAM. Okay, I forgot to put a name for the dev, and then I'll call this Excel utility. Okay, so this is my developer copy. Okay, and once I'm ready, then once my all my add-ins functionalities are ready, I'll basically save as XLAM. Okay, so I'm gonna do again F12, and then I'm going to choose XLAM. Okay, so once you choose that, it will navigate you to the add-ins folder, but you can also save it to the folder of your choice. Okay, and then you can install from there. So now I'm gonna save as in a different name called Excel utilities.xlam. Okay. Okay. So let's close this now. For now. So here is our add-in file that we just published. Now I'm gonna copy this part, open a brand new workbook, and from your developer tab, and also for the shortcut is Alt-I. It'll bring up this window, or you can click here. Um, browse, put in the path, and click OK. Now you can see that Excel utilities has been added. Okay. Now, irrespective of the workbook, this particular function is gonna work. Okay, so I'm gonna add a couple of workbook here, book 3, book 2. Okay, and if I do this, now it understands. Yeah, so you can add, you can use this function anywhere now. For example, here as well. You can put a number here as well directly. Okay, so that's basically how you will be creating an add-in. Um, and let's say that let me just add one more functionality. Let's call this public sub. Let's call this hello world, and then this will basically just return us message box hello world. Yeah, and now I'll just click on save from here. Okay. Normally, when I create an add-in, I have because when you're working with the add-in file, you're not able to see the add-in file itself. The sheets. So when you save, like it creates a problem. So normally I have one code to save the workbook. So save add-in. And then I'll just say this workbook dot save. Okay. So that way I don't have to go and click here. Maybe it will save the active workbook instead of the project. Okay, so just be sure of that. Okay, so we have created this hello world now. Now we should be able to if we have, let's see, another project. Okay, so I'll call this VBA project 2, something like that. Let's say we want to call this particular method or procedure from another, like VBA project. So the simplest way will be just to add a reference to that particular project. Okay, this add-in project like this. And now you should be able to call this test. Now I should be able to just say call this now. Okay, so if I run this, it says hello world. It's able to understand that. Normally, let's say that this is VBA project 2. Okay, let's say I have a process called micro 1. Yeah, and this will just say return micro 1. Normally, if you have to call this micro 1 from, let's say, another project. Okay, let's say this is we'll call this VBA project 1. I hope this is not confusing you, but I'm just trying to demonstrate that if you add a reference, you can directly call the function like this. Otherwise, you'll have to use a run function, run method. Okay, so from project 1, I'm gonna say sub test micro 1. Now, if I write here micro 1 and run, it's not gonna understand because this macro there's no way to understand where this macro is located. Okay, so the way normally to go about it will be to use the run function, and then we'll take the name of the file where the code is located. So here macro 1 is located in book 2, right? So I'll say run and then we'll put in the code macro 1. And then we'll just put this single code uh, around the workbook name. Okay, so if I run this now, it says macro 1. Now, one small drawback of this method is that you have to ensure that this particular workbook is open, otherwise it's going to throw an error. Whereas if you link to the add-in, for example, you can call the methods and procedures as if, it is located within the same project. Okay. Now going back, let's take a step further. In this section, we'll create a custom Excel utility to highlight rows and columns. Could be a single or multiple cells, and then we'll make it work not only for this particular sheet, but also to any workbook that is open. We'll add this functionality to our add-in. This utility will be helpful when working with like a huge range of tables and data sets while doing your analysis. So for example, if you click on a cell like this, the code will highlight like this. And if you click on more cells, holding down the control key, it will highlight in this fashion. So let's create a functionality like this, and then we'll create a class object to handle this. Okay, now let me go first. Let me create in this project to Excel sum file, because add-in file we cannot see the sheets, right? Even if you add like the code here, it will be specific to this particular sheet. Okay, so it's not going to work. So let me first demonstrate in this particular book, and then we will take a step further from there. Okay, so from here, select selection change. So basically, what is going to happen with this event is target dot address. Now, basically, if you click here, it will show where you click. Yeah. Okay. Now, to add this basic functionality, let's create dim column X. This will hold the column address and row X. Let's call this R string. Yeah, this $sign symbolized string. Okay. Um, and then column is gonna be target. We'll get the target entire column address. Okay, so column is equal to target dot entire column dot address, and then we'll do similarly for the rows. Rows is going to be target dot entire row dot address, and then now we can do a replace of those $signs. So for example, if I do this active cell, so it's going to bring us the $sign. Yeah, so I'm just going to get rid of that by using a replace expression. We want to remove the $sign with a blank. Okay, so similarly we'll do it here. Just give me 1 second. So once I have this, I can say range. The order does not matter now. And then row X dot select, column X, row X dot select. Okay, so let's see if this works. Okay, sorry, that's my bad. Let's first turn off the events and select, and then because as soon as it selects, it's further it runs on activation. So again, let me first turn off, select, and then I'm gonna turn back on. So it's gonna turn false when it's clicked, and then it will select the row and then turn back the events on. Okay. Okay, now it looks good. So let's say that you're working in a huge data set, you can scroll all over, or like could be way down as well. Yeah. Okay. So now ideally, what if you want to include this in all the sheets that are there in your workbook? Ideally, what you'll do is this is basically you will have to add more handlers and everything, but this is a basic code. You'll have to keep replicating this code in all the sheets. Let's say that you have so many sheets that you want to use this same functionality, you'll have to keep adding them. And if you have other workbooks where you want to use them, then you'll have to keep on replicating this code in those sheets as well. Yeah. So now, if you want this particular functionality to work in all the sheets of any workbook, then you will have to create a basically you'll have to create a class object to handle this kind of events. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Okay, it's not going to work efficiently. So let's take a step further now. We'll create, let me just disable this now. Anyways, this is located in project 2, so it really does not matter. Um, okay, so let me create a class in this add-in file, okay? Now, if you're comfortable working with XLSM, for example, you can first work and then every time you have to create an add-in, you can simply save as, or you can do a publish, basically save as function with the name, and then you can call, like to create an add-in on runtime. Okay, so first, again, going back to our project, I'm going to create a class. Let's call this class as small. We'll call this as C4 class, and then we'll call this application in short, okay? And then in this class, we're gonna add, basically we're gonna create an application object with events. Now I'm gonna call this private, and then with events, so that events are associated with it. With events, and then the name of the method object as, and then application. So now we have created one object, and now we can use this app. Now we'll look for sheet change event. Okay, this one. Yeah. So the events will be handled from here. We'll first have to initiate it. Let me get rid of this. And class initializer. Here we will set our app equal to application, which is Excel. So yeah. So now we have this here. Once we're ready, we'll move our code, which we created here, into, like here. It'll be handled from here. Okay, so for now, let me just leave this part out. And we will have to, like once the workbook is open, which is our add-in workbook, once this open, we want to um, set this application to this class. Okay, so let's call this private. Let's call this variable as Excel app. Let's see. Okay, and set this equal to new. So I'll come here and run this code just to make sure probably saved. Okay, and I'm gonna disable this code now. And let's try and restart and see if it works. Let me start off project 1. This is where there's no. So if you go back here, you can see there's no, like events related to this particular code, but this selection is happening from here now. Okay. Now, if I add a new sheet, it works here. If I add a new workbook, also it works here. This book 2, adding another workbook, book 3. Okay, so this is how you can handle by creating a simple, like object like this. Okay, and then working with the events. Okay, so now let's take a step further. This works only for a single cell. What if you want to select more cells and highlight more, like more columns? Yeah, so we'll try to do that now. Now, before we go ahead and improve this code, we need to have a mechanism to turn this off because we don't want this auto selection like this to the highlight to happen all the time. Okay, so let's go ahead and add a toggle button here so that we can turn this highlight off and on. For that, I'm gonna take some quick customization from Ribbon Driven X series, episode 1 and 5, basically for the toggle button. Okay. Um, so I'm gonna launch this custom UI editor. I'm selecting the Excel utilities.xlam. Okay. Then I'm gonna copy this and paste it here. So here, basically we are creating a custom UI, start from scratch itself, because we want to have the ribbon. Now we don't want the custom tab yet. Let's just leave it like that. In the home tab, we're adding a new group called custom utilities, and then we're adding a toggle button. This is the image for that, and then the label is this, and the size is large. When the button is clicked, it's gonna run this particular code. Okay. Now if I go in here, we can get a callback for this. Okay, so I'm gonna save this and close. Let me open this file. So now you can see there's a button here. I'm gonna go in here, add a new module, and I'm gonna add this code here. Okay. Um, and then I'm gonna create a public. Let's call this activate status as Boolean. So whenever this is clicked, this button is clicked, we'll get if it is true or false. Yeah. And then we will make this code run only when this is true. If this is true, then else don't run this code. Yeah. And next step will be to improve this code. Let me go back here and save this. Let me call this ribbon X. Okay, so now it's off. It should not do anything. If I toggle this on, it should start highlighting. Yeah. Okay, so that's taken care of now. Now we can take a step further to improve this particular code. Now, if you're happy with this part of the code, then you can definitely skip forward. But for example, this should work okay till a couple of cells, or like if you select adjacent cells like this, it should work okay. But the moment you start selecting like more than this, it's gonna like turn black. That is because it is selecting the entire cell multiple times, because every time you click a cell, it's recording this address, right? So the first time you click, it's just one address, but then once you redo it, it becomes more and more, yeah, like this. Okay, so the idea here is basically to add a unique address using a dictionary. We're going to identify which address is unique and does not exist yet in the selection. Then we're going to add those. We're going to use array to like store the data, and then in the end we're gonna convert that array into a range and then do a selection. Okay, so let's give it a shot. And then we also need to identify if the control key is like hold down, so it's active. So we'll use a simple API as well for that. Okay, but before that, let's create let me just call this functions, something like that. And then this one can be highlights module, something like that. Okay, so let's call this log address, maybe target address. And then we'll take range as input. So every time the cell is clicked, we will log that address. And then in the end, once the control key is up, then we will consolidate all the address and highlight them. Yeah. Okay, so dim selection count just to make sure if the selection count is more than, like if it is 0, then we don't want to run it. So we'll call the selection count variable as long, and selection dot, and I think we'll have to put this within the error handler. Then we'll put a basic validation. If selection count is lesser than 1, that means 0, then we want to exit function. Okay, so that will be a start, and that is to ensure the selection. Second, we will have to identify, if before logging the address, we need to identify if it is unique. Yeah, so that, because what happens when multiple cells get selected multiple times, like this, it becomes dark, so we don't want that to happen. Okay, so basically that's why we need to identify if the address that is being passed here is unique or not. So every time it selects, it's not going to be one. The second time it passes, it's going to be, like address of all this selection. Okay, so just to handle that part. Now for this, we will need a dictionary, but then we'll have to store this in a public variable, because we'll have to use this outside of this particular function as well. This is just to log the address, and then we will need to create one more to select the final address. Okay, so let's call this range underscore dictionary as scripting dot dictionary. It is not, let me first reference this, Microsoft scripting runtime. Okay, just check this box. Now we'll create a dictionary. If this is nothing, then we want to create, let this equal to, we will create object, and this object is going to be the scripting dictionary. Now next, let's collect this address. For now, let's not run this anymore. We'll have to keep saving this just in case it gets lost. Okay, so we will need this address. The target will become our X range, whatever range was passed. Um, we will not select. All right, so now we will need to concatenate this. And then we will have to split this range, because it is going to come multiple cells. Some of them, it could be the whole row like this. Some address could be, like duplicated, so we'll have to split them using a comma, and then we are gonna arrange that, check if it exists in the dictionary, and then if it doesn't, we're gonna add that to the dictionary, so that next time we can validate again, and then we will use whatever is added to dictionary will be added to array as well. Okay, so let me just quickly type this out, and then we will discuss this again. So let's say dim range addresses as string, and then we will need to split, so we'll call this split. This will be our array as string. Then we will need the index for looping later, and then the key that we'll be using for dictionary. This will be string. All right, and then this range address will be our this, and we're just basically concatenating them with a comma. Okay, Now we will check if log already exists. First, we will check that. So let's create a new public variable. This is going to be our final um, array. Let's call this memory array range or something like that. A string. This will be a string, array string. And then just copy and replicate this block. Now let's say JS long. This will just check U bound of just to check if address already exists. I mean, the log already exists so that we can append further. And then now we can also have rows as long, and then row is gonna be this will be just to replace if the whole entire row, I mean, uh, all the rows from 1 till like rows.count is selected, so we're gonna replace that in a moment. And then now we're gonna split this address. I'm sure you're already familiar with the split functionality. It will split this address using a comma. Yeah, so if there are multiple range, I think once we run this with the debugging later, then we'll be able to understand more. Yeah, so this will be equal to split. Then we want to split this address using a comma. And now we have, once we have this, we want to loop through all the range. So let's say we'll start using our I now. For I is equal to lower bound of split addresses to U bound of this. And then our dictionary key is gonna be whatever key at that point of time it is. Dictionary key is gonna be this, and or I. And now we can start to check if this particular value exists in the dictionary, okay? And if it doesn't, then we will start storing this in our, like memory array. So if not this dot exist, and then whatever key it is at that point of time, if this key does not exist, then we will add this, we will increment our array. So if the, it already exists, it's gonna identify from here. If it is not, like it keeps on incrementing. J plus 1, and then we want to preserve the prior values. Let's say reading, we'll have to preserve the values, and then this will be 1 to whatever is the total at that moment as string, same data type, and then we'll say this, and then J will be equal to this key. So now we've just checked, we're looping through the addresses, and then we're identifying the key, whatever is that, at that point of time after the split, like split it, and then we're checking if it exists in the dictionary. If it is not, if not, yeah, then we are redeclaring our array and then preserving the prior value, and then we are assigning the key to that particular memory location, yeah, to the array. And now we will have to add this also to the key, otherwise the next time we want to recheck. If it does not, then we will do add, and then it will be the key, and this part can be nothing. All right, so now we have added that. Now one small changes. For example, whenever we do the first selection like this, it's going to select the entire cell like this, rows and column. So the next time you click, it is also going to pick up the entire, like row number one till whatever the rows is. So here I'll just add a functionality just to make sure that that is excluded. Okay. So in string, and then within this, we want to start checking from the first letter, character, and then we want to make sure this key, whatever the key is at that point of time, does not hold row number one till, or basically this rows dot count. Okay, so it will just replace that. Um, hold on. If this is equal to 0, only then we will add it. Otherwise, we will just skip that part as well. Okay, so now the last part, maybe if we want to debug and see what our values was added, because we are in the add-in dot print, and let's do string. Let's print this 20 times, and dim variable key for each key in our dictionary. Rings dictionary dot keys. Print. This is the key. So we can just try this once. Then we need to restart this app once. So just remember to save your work, especially when you're working with add-ins. It's difficult sometimes. Da, da. This should be the key. So it added this to address so far. Okay, so I think so far it is working okay. Now we'll try and use this. Let me turn this off. Okay, now we'll create one more small process to select the final range, whatever is selected, created from the log, and then we'll have to destroy so that it's not reused in the next. Let's call this cross selection or highlight. Dim final range. This will store our final range from this array, and then we will do the selection. Now let me just quickly copy some block of code. Here, if j, which will be the u-bound of this memory array, so if j is equal to 0, then we want to exit sub. So that means there is no data in array. Nothing was saved. And now we can do construct the range basically, or final range. So, and now we'll take care of the control key as well in just a moment. If j is equal to 1, that means there is only one address. Okay, then set this equal to range, and then whatever was the first index, because we are starting our index from 1. Okay, so if this is 0 at that point of time, once we go down here, it will increment it. Yeah, so it starts from 1. Okay, and then else, and if there are multiple of them, we will have to there is a join function basically to join all the values in the array with a comma, or you can have different delimiter as well. Okay, so I'll say this uh, range, and then we'll use the join function. This is the source array, and then as you can see, the delimiter will be comma. Okay, now we have our final range. We can now final range dot select, and then we want to erase whatever was used earlier. So erase function will basically erase the array, and then dictionary as well. We want to remove all the items. Dot remove all, and then set. We'll just clear the memory. Okay. So now we will call this when we have for example, when the user is holding down the control key, then we will only log the address, and as soon as they click the final cell, it's gonna run this particular code. Yeah. So going back here, let me save this first. So here, now we will have to take care of to check if the control key is hold active. Okay. For that, I have this small API that we'll just copy this. I'll leave this in the video description or the blog. Let me just edit here, okay? So this is basically the control key, and this is the API to get the state of that control key. Um, Now we need to write a small function here. Okay, so function, let's call this control key is active, like that. So now if get key state of this control key is lesser than 0, else If that's the case, control key is active as boolean. This will be true. If it is lesser than 0, then true, else false. Okay, I cannot test this now like this. So we'll have to first run the code. Let me save this. Okay, this video will be too long. If this first we're checking if the user have toggled this. If that is true, then we will proceed. Now, if the control key is down, if this is true, sorry, if this is control key is down, now in both the cases we want to log the address, but here we don't want to select yet. Okay, we just want to log the address in the memory. But if not, if the control key is not down, then we want to run our function. Like Jill, we will run this code. Okay, so if everything is fine, then we should be able to see the results happen now. Yep, I think that's pretty much it. Let me move this away like this. Okay. So now let's give it a shot. Okay, we'll have to restart. Before restarting, let me save this. Now I'm gonna hold on my control key, and once I click this last cell, if the code is fine, then it should highlight this all these columns and all these rows. Yeah, okay, so it seems to be working fine. Yeah, now if you select in the same column like this, it's basically unselecting, so it's not gonna work. Instead, if you want to highlight multiple rows like this, you do in that fashion. Okay, like this, like this, and like this. So hold on the control key after your first click, and then now hold on the control key, click, click, and on the once you want to click the final cell, you just leave the control key up and then just click on the final cell like this. If you want to select only two cells, click once here or any cell, and then hold on the control key, click on the cell, leave the control key and click one more time, the same cell. It's gonna highlight in that fashion. So I think that will be all for this part of this utility. I hope this utility will be useful in your daily work. So now we have added this functionality. This will be available in any workbook that you open. So book 3, book 4. So every time you turn on, it's gonna work. Yeah. Okay. Now I'm gonna quickly touch base couple of more points. We'll bring in or others or other functionalities we built in, and then that will be it. So now let's say that you want to let me close all this Excel. I'm gonna go back to our ribbon. and I'll bring in, I'll just paste this code. The only addition is this. Okay, so we are creating a new tab called demo, or we can say Excel. We delete this just to be consistent. And then this is group called maybe miscellaneous, and then we'll say trim cells or clean data, something like that. Now, if you want to understand more on the RibbonX, there are lots of tutorials with lots of like professional customization. So do check it out. Instead of macro one, I'll change the name of the code to oops, clean data. Now I'll click here and get a callback. Okay, and I'm gonna go and close this. So now when we load up this add-in again, we'll have a new tab called Excel Utilities. And once you click here, we have not put a code yet. This is also there. Now, if you want to add more stuff, you can keep adding a group here, more buttons, menus, drop down, whatever you want. Yeah. I'm gonna add this new code here. Callback for clean data. Um, let's say we want to clean the data. So I'm basically quickly showing you this so that you can include this kind of customization in your add-in, and then you can call your codes using this button, for example. You can also add a context menu, which I'll quickly show that as well. So let's say that when you click on this button, you want the code to clean the data in the selection. Okay, so we can say for theme my range as range, or let's say C for each in selection. Struggling with my keyboard here. C dot value is equal to application dot function. Let's trim it first, and then C dot value, and you can further clean it as well if there are special characters or sort of that. Then you can also do the clean. Okay, so that's a basic function. One more functionality you have added. So let's say that there is a value, lots of space. Select this, it remove it, trim it, right? So if you copy some contents from the web and paste it here, for example, when you run, it's basically going to clean that as well. Okay, so that's one more quick way to add it. Now, quickly going back to the context menu, episode file. Let's say that we want to add a quick button. Let me run this. It has basically added this. Okay, so now we can also quickly replicate this to have it in our add-in. So for that, I'm gonna quickly drag this into our add-in. And from here, we just need two buttons. In case you don't want to do this kind of customization, you can run this code quickly to handle this. So for example, delete this. I'll quickly replicate this, and this quick button to the first one could be enable and disable or something. Face ID, maybe 1, 2, 3. and then the code you want to run. So on action, we'll say enable macro, and then this one will be disable macro. So this can take care of, for example, if you want to do this, handle this from here, you can also say this is equal to true, this is equal to false. Yeah. Now, if I run this, you have two buttons, enable. Okay, we need to restart this add-in, but this is how you can add this. We'll test this out later in a bit. Okay, one more thing, the way you can call, let's say that you have more utilities which are not here as button and you want to trigger using a shortcut, you can use the hotkeys. I've just put in the link here. Basically, the command is application on key, and then you can specify the key. So, and then the code you want to run. Okay, and if you want, let's say you want to do a control Q to run the trim code that we just created, then you'll use this and the Q. That's basically it. Okay, so let me just demonstrate this very quickly. When you're creating an add-in, this also can be useful. Um, sub enable control Q, for example. So whenever control Q is clicked, let's say we want to run. Let me just move this here, for example, now. And let's say that we want to trim code, trim data. So when we click on that button, it's going to run this code. And then let's say that when we hit the control Q, we want to run this code as well. So we can have this. So whenever the workbook starts up, you can run this. And then when the workbook closes, you can just disable it so that it does not run again. Disable control Q. And then you just remove the name of the code here. So for example, if I run this code now, okay, now this is active. When I hit my control Q, it's supposed to clean the data. Okay, so let's say that I have some data that I need to clean. If I do a control Q after selecting this, it's gonna run the code. Okay, so control Q, yeah, so it ran. um, well, you can see the results, but you can also put a message box and try it out. Now if I run this code now to disable, if I press control Q, nothing is going to happen. Okay, so that's another quick addition you might want to use in your add-in. If you put in lots of utilities, you might want to have a shortcut as well. And now let me just drag and drop our existing utilities that we created. Example, filter by clipboard, and then this VBA code generator, and then we will put that in the initializer code, like the workbook open events, and then it will handle, like creating the menus and all automatically. Let me first add the VBE tool. Um, this is the API. Episode 2. Okay, so let me drag and drop this into our utilities. And then episode 1, this is supposed to create the menu. Okay, so if you have not seen these videos, you can check it out. Basically, this is gonna create this button here. I'm gonna go to our utilities workbook open. We will also want to run this code. This will create this button. Um, and then once that button is clicked, we can automatically create a macro code with this. Okay, so let me give that a try. Um, just before that, let me also bring in the filter by clipboard. That will be the last. I'll make this available in the download center for those of you who are interested with a minimal, amount so that you can support the channel at the same time. Filter by clipboard. Okay, so I'm gonna rename this filter by clip module. Here's filter by clipboard. And now on control Q, I've put this here as a demonstration, but I'm gonna get rid of this. Um, filter using clipboard data. Now let's run this code when we do a control Q. Instead of trim data, okay, we need to bring in, thanks menu. So this will run, this also will, we should run this whenever the workbook opens. So we'll have this. So this will take care of creating this button. This will take care of adding these buttons. When the workbook closes, if you want to run, before close, so before it closes, we want to make sure that this is clean up. Put this here, and then for VBE as well. You know, we have lots of things. Just to add the code and just to clean the controls, okay? So if you have not seen these videos, prior videos, you can also check it out. For this to work, we also need to have a reference to extensibility. I'm not sure about this. I'll just leave that as it is for now. I'm gonna ensure the work will be saved. Let's restart everything. Custom ribbon menu, no. User defined, not defined. Oh, sorry. I forgot to drop the class into this session. Just make sure this is dropped in here. Oops. Okay, all the extra are closed. Now opening this workbook. Alt DI, so our utilities is there. There is our button. So if I put in some dummy data to trim it, Yeah, trimming okay. If I go in here, enable this. If I do multiple of this, it still works. Good. Okay, enable. I can also disable from here as well. Yeah. Um, okay, if I go to my VBA editor, I can use this button now. Hello, hello. Now it enters a code with the error handler. Um, Last thing we can check is filter by clipboard. Um, okay, I just need this data just to demonstrate. Now, if it is working properly, we have already enabled. No, I think we have. This hotkey also needs to be enabled when the add-in launches. So I'll put this here as well. Okay, and for now, let me activate this manually. I'm gonna copy US and Control Q, so it applies a filter to US. Yeah. Now if I copy this Chicago, Miami, Control Q, just that for us. Yeah. So that's how like how useful the add-in is. Now you can like as per your requirement, you can add as many utilities maybe to connect it to servers. Like do some custom functions that is not there inbuilt in Excel. You can like it's very good for distribution as well. Again, basically you just need to do bring up your add-in this from here, or you can also go to file options add-ins. From here you can also click on go, and then you can browse for your add-in which you've created, or the one you want to install. Select and click on OK. That will install the add-in. If you want to uninstall, you go open this window, uncheck this box, and click on OK. That will uninstall the add-in. Okay. So I think that's pretty much it. We have covered the shortcuts, custom UI menu. Um, we have added some new utilities. We have onboarded some of the, like the code that we have tried so far on creating the code automatically, filter by clipboard, and so on. So down the line, I'll try to make more videos, as I've said, for PowerPoint, Access Database, Outlook, and so on. So watch out for that. I think that will be all for this video. I think that we've taken a lot of time. If you found the video useful, please do share the video, give a thumbs up, and do comment as well. It will help on the rating of the channel. So thank you so much, guys, for watching, and do have a great day. Bye bye.